Okay, when I returned back to my family and the party, I was both relieved and actually kind of disappointed. Relieved because my family didn't suspect a thing about me being gone for longer than I should have, and actually embarrassed me in front of people about me being a slightly socially anxious person when I go to any public bathroom. Which, in all honesty, is true, but I hate that they even felt it appropriate to embarrass me like that in front of actual strangers. But disappointed when they didn't even blink at the fact that I was not really around and could possibly be in some danger. Like, really? Am I seriously not that much of a concern to them? Well, that's okay, I guess. No, it's fucking not. And throughout that night, I was making it a point to show my displeasure by keeping to myself and sulking with the don't bother me attitude. I knew I was going to get flack for it later, when my family and I were going to return to our hotel room, but at that point I didn't care. In fact, I was more than tempted to slip away again without announcing my leave, and chance my trek back to the secluded graveyard of fallen veterans. Abraham was a much better soul to be around than who I was surrounded by now. But that didn't happen, and I was proven right when I was scolded about my attitude towards the others in public. It basically told me something along the lines of, if you can't fix your attitude in public, you're going straight home, which I had a lot to say about that. But I decided to just go and skip dinner and sleep early, shunning everybody around me. Soon enough, all of them followed my example, and I was left in an unrestricted pit of resentment and nagging shame. Maybe I was in the wrong. Maybe I was being immature. But my pride sure as hell was not allowing me to cry uncle to any of them. At least, not that night, however. That very next day, we all decided to pretend what happened last night had never happened. Trooper didn't fail to tell me that sweeping this under the rug was not a healthy way of dealing with this, but I dismissed that entirely for hope that I'd be able to have a fun, good day to write over the nightmare that was yesterday. With our father's friends, of course. Of course. When we reached the front entrance of the cemetery again, I was eager to go back to the arts and crafts booth again to make a new sash for Trooper, since I ended up losing the one I already made. I got a scolding again for this from my family, mainly my father and sister, who are so alike in so many ways. And my mother came to my defense, and brought up how we needed to use up the large amount of tickets on the many booths present for this event anyway. Needless to say, the air got even more tense that time, and I became guilty for saying anything again. Seriously, do I need to become mute at this point? What am I doing? They were here to enjoy themselves. And so are you. If you want to go to the arts and crafts booth, you should be allowed to go to the arts and crafts booth. Simple as that. Trooper's voice cut into my self-talk, and I slightly furrowed my brows unsurely. I ended up getting the okay from my father to go and take 2 tickets worth of arts and crafts crafting, the rest being reserved for stuff he and his friend were planning to have the whole family do. And I shot straight for the booth with an already new formulated sash in my hyperactive mind. As soon as I reached it, the lady who worked it greeted me in familiarity, and gestured to the crafts already placed and organized on one of the 3 tables situated at the booth. I didn't pay attention to how long I was there, but was just carefully hurried in my creation of my stuffed animal's new and improved sash of honor. This time, instead of going completely all thread with a couple of plastic red, white, and blue beads held in place by knots tied meticulously in the golden thread, I went with bright yellow and orange beads, tied onto a long, wiry red yarn with a red, white, and blue star bead thrown into the mix of yellow and orange. Of them, evenly spaced from one another, was a brighter yellow star in the complete middle of all of them to be the actual acting metal for the sash. At last, it was complete. And I was just eager to finally put it onto Trooper, whom I could feel was excited to put it on too, when my sister suddenly appeared again and told me that my time was up. She didn't know I decided to bring Trooper with me again that day, as she had made it plenty clear that I was forbidden from bringing him with me again. Needless to say, I was undergoing a spiteful disobedience streak with some of my family right now, and I was not about to let them in on any of my precious secrets and fun. So, with the relatively unaffected and innocent act, I got up and thanked the booth owner and followed my sister back to our next place of visit. I made sure to put the sash in my pocket, just for later, while also simultaneously checking to feel for Trooper in my jacket again, and was eased when I felt his familiar beady bundle under my palm. Upon regrouping with the family again, we made off for the grave sites of people to visit some of their family that was also resting there, and I was alerted to the familiar large field I ran through the night before. We walked past other people with the same idea, and stopped at some graves bearing the same surname as our father's friend. I started feeling the effects of phasing into the forgettable background when I realized all of them were busy conversing with one another, and I suddenly felt the urge to go back to the secluded cemetery to visit my newfound true friend. Not even bothering to see if they would notice me blatantly turning and walking away from them, I made immediately for the cluster of oak trees, to where I was undoubtedly going to see the Gothic black gate around the bend in the field. I snaked around the trunk of an oak tree and paused behind it, the feeling of fear and worry beginning to bubble up in my gut at the realization dawning on me that I was really going to be in serious trouble if they found me gone. But then the thought of them not even realizing if I were behind them or not swirled in my mind at the same time, reminding me of the last night. And I effectively carried on my way with deliberate and certain steps. I wanted to see Abraham. I didn't want to linger around people that basically made me feel like shit for doing whatever I did or wanted to. And besides, I was old enough to venture off on my own anyway. I basically reassured myself, trying to quash the still lingering fear and guilt from overwhelming me any more than it was trying to. So, with certain and deliberate steps, I carried on to the familiar overgrown grassy path and off towards the dark Gothic gates. It was like a completely different place in the daytime. While everything was still slightly imposingly dark and unkempt, the sunshine gave off a more upbeat and warmly welcome feel to me. I was certainly more at ease with what I was doing. I soon came upon the familiar dark goth gate, the sunlight showing that the black paint was a bit chipped and peeling in several different places. However, the chain itself was all the more sleek and shiny, definitely something recently added to the gate. I leaned forward and grabbed at the door, but upon pulling, I winced at the loud, shrill squeak that shrieked into my ears and pierced the previously still and bird-song-filled air. Nope, can't get in there. It occurred to me that the man that tried to catch me the night before would definitely have changed out the chain to make entry at this point more of a struggle and even less desired. Sorry, Abraham, this is probably for the best. I craned my neck to peer through the bars, to find the bear still situated on the tombstone, further into the secluded area. Once I spotted the bear and even glimpsed the small sash Trooper and I had gifted him the night before, a small smile ghosted my face, and I momentarily forgot to feel anxious about everything. But, out of nowhere, I suddenly felt large hands clamp harshly down onto my shoulders and felt myself get yanked off my feet quickly, eliciting a shocked yelp of terror at the abrupt grip I felt myself get detained by. So you're the lurker I found that night. You were stupid to come back again in the day, because I'm not going to let you out of my sight again. A harsh male voice proclaimed at me with frightening intensity, and my legs began quivering in terror as they failed to keep me grounded and standing straight and steady. I most definitely knew I grew extremely pale in terror, and I didn't know how I would be able to get out of this situation unharmed. Ah! I'm sorry! I wasn't doing anything wrong, I swear! I shrieked with a desperate and shrill voice, covering my eyes in a vain attempt at avoiding the fate I knew I would inevitably be marched straight into. I was going to jail, wasn't I? I was going to be fined for trespassing or something, and then my father would end up killing me for ending up in this sort of situation. Oh, fuck! I probably grew even paler at the prospect of it happening. I let out a muffled whine as whoever held me by the back of my jacket basically kept me suspended into the air as my legs had completely stopped functioning normally at the uncontrollable quaking my legs had succumbed to. There was a moment of silence as whoever had detained me watched me with surprise and disbelief, as though not believing someone like me was ever planning on doing anything against the law to cause mischief. Then he sighed to himself as he rubbed his free hand down his exhausted face, and he decided to ease off the terror he regretted putting me through at the reaction he got from me. He didn't expect me to be a young kid. Now he felt bad. All right. Just calm down. I'm not going to do anything to you. Just relax. Carefully, he released me and let me back onto my feet, but his arm spurred outstretched when I swayed off balance at my legs still shaking unsteadily in terror. But I was able to regain my balance without his help. But in all honesty, I only did it because I was still wary of the stranger and didn't want to even be close to him. The stranger looked to have been of a Mexican ethnicity, with light caramel-colored skin and dark, earnest, coffee-black eyes, and some equally dark facial hair that matched with his styled dark raven black hair. He had a bright yellow shirt on and dark denim blue jeans with worn brown work boots. Despite his body language changing to be less hostile and more non-threatening, I was way too shaken to really trust the man, and scuttled to keep him as far away from me as I possibly could for comfort. He saw this and understood, keeping his hands up in my vision to keep me aware of his movements. I narrowed my eyes at him, and his own widened in surprise at my unexpected show of mistrust. Clearing his throat, he attempted to make me less skittish again. All right, Chica, what were you doing back here anyway? You could have avoided this whole mess and stayed away. I didn't know who you were until now. He spoke almost sternly, and I was reluctant to share anything with him. Still, I had to admit I was in the wrong, especially since he was making the attempt at playing nice. I shouldn't refuse an olive branch when it's offered. I was paying respects, I answered honestly, looking him in the eye to make sure he didn't see there was any misdirection intended. Because it was a half-truth, after all. But would he even know Abraham? It probably wouldn't help my case whatsoever if I mentioned him. Or it would end up selling the point that I was just an imaginative, gullible kid that meant well, but fucked up without truly meaning or realizing it. Ah, well, he didn't seem all that unconvinced anyway. My shoulders relaxed at this in relief, and it implicitly told him that I was nearly eased of the majority of the tension I was still slightly plagued by. All right, come on, let's return you to your parents. Probably worried sick about where you ran off to. And that's when any sliver of comfortability I could have had flew straight out of the window and left me an anxious and internally panicked mess. I was not keen on going to find my parents with a chaperone, and would more than likely not take too kindly to me running off without notifying them of my whereabouts. Whether this stranger was aware of my dismayed feelings or not, he didn't say or make it known, but instead left me no choice but to follow after him and find my definite coming demise. Trooper, I really need a miracle right about now. Well, fuck you too!